I'm here with Julie Schultz, and we connected via Instagram. She has a great story. And maybe, Julie, we could just start out with where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Julie Schultz. I live in Pearland, which is a little suburb outside of Houston. I'm 46 years old. I'm married, been married for going on 16 years, and we have three children, 7, 8, and 10.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think I saw at one point you weighed 235 pounds and you
Yes.
lost a total of 90 pounds. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
What was your expectation of food growing up, and was the weight something that you put on later in life, or was it something that you had kind of struggled with throughout life?
I think it's something that I've always battled. Food was always around. I'm Hispanic, and it was one of you get hurt, here's a cookie, but it's always been around. It's everything centers around food. My parents had their own business, so they were always working all the time, and I always knew dinner time was when we wouldn't sit at a table and like a formal table and eat dinner, but we would all be around eating somewhere, in a room in a house, and that was how food's always been with me. It's been like a comfort.
Yeah, it's funny you said that about the you got hurt, here's a cookie, and how I didn't even think about it till now, but the associations with foods that maybe we create early in life that aren't the most healthy. That's okay. You bumped your elbow, have a cookie or have a piece of chocolate.
Well, exactly, and and even now, whenever something bad happens, like if it one thing I remember is whenever it would storm when I was little, we would always everybody would come over and we'd cook. So like now, if there's a thunderstorm or something, I want to eat something. I get hungry, and it's just those things that stick with you that you can't get rid of, really.
Wow. And then earlier in life, were you able to kind of fend off the weight, or did it start creeping up pretty early on?
It creeped on pretty early on. I was always pretty heavy set. I mean, I did everything under the sun. I remember taking diet pills for a long time. I did all these diets. I did always exercise was something that I always did. And then when I met my husband, got married, started having kids, that's when it kind of after that, it just snowballed. And it became really hard for me to start getting back in that groove of exercise again like I used to when I was young. Because when I was younger, it was okay. It was easy for me to go and do it, nothing hurt. But as I got bigger, it just became more difficult.
Okay. And then, looking back, were there any frustrations or struggles or things that, were kind of, that limited you by being bigger that maybe you previously hadn't had to deal with?
Well, like we were talking earlier, like riding a bike, that was really hard. Like I'd ride with groups of people, and I was always the last one because it was always so hard for me to catch up with everybody. I had aches, pains. Like sometimes I felt like I had trouble breathing. They had diagnosed me with sports-induced asthma. So stuff like that. I was pre-diabetic as well, so that also gave me some issues.
Wow. And is that something that you've been able to kind of keep under control now that you're so much smaller?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is that something that your doctors or that you thought was unavoidable? Like that was just kind of where you were headed, or were they confident that it was something you could keep under control with weight?
Well, I have a family history of it. Pretty much most of my family has diabetes, type 2. And I was, headed that route. My dad actually died from complications of diabetes back in 2007. So it was kind of like if I don't change something, I'm going down that same route.
Wow, sorry to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you mentioned it, and you also said on your website that eating was and always will be a battle for you.
Mm-hmm.
How does that? How do you look at that differently now?
It's still a battle, and I'm not going to say that I eat perfectly because I don't. But the big thing with me right now that I do is I exercise a lot, and but my relationship with food is different now. It's more like, what can I eat to make me a better swimmer, just a better athlete overall? What's going to make me better at that instead of eating to, keep my weight down. I have a different relationship with food now. If I eat this, it's going to make my stomach upset, and I may not be able to get up in the morning and run.
Right. Yeah. Now, did you have a specific point that you decided to make a change where, did you hit rock bottom and decided to make a 180, or was it more of a slow transition for you?
I think it was a slow transition for me. It was always a battle that I tried to do on my own. I ended up losing weight with the weight loss surgery, and that was always back then in the back of my head. And I was like, okay, well, let me try to really work out and do something. And I thought, okay, I'm going to sign up for MS 150, which is a ride from Houston to Austin. I'm going to train for it, and I'm going to see how I do. And maybe if that gets me going to losing weight, then I'll just keep doing it. And I signed up, I trained, and race day, I only made it, it's a 2-day race, and I only completed the first day. I couldn't do the second day. And afterwards, I came back, went to the doctor, and that's when they diagnosed me with sports-induced asthma and the pre-diabetes and all that stuff. So it happened. And so that was in April of 2011. And around July, I started having some stomach issues, and they found out I was having gallbladder issues. So I had to get my gallbladder removed, and I was like, well, you know what? Since I have to get that surgery, maybe I should look into weight loss surgery now. Maybe now is a good time. And that's what I did.
And then once you kind of got out of that period, and then, obviously you said you had some issues with relationships with food, and there are other things that are kind of built in. What did you start doing in those weeks and months to come to kind of set a new trajectory for yourself?
Like after my surgery, you mean?
Yeah, after your surgery.
After my surgery, so my husband was doing triathlons, and he actually got me back into exercising again because he signed up for swim class and to learn how to sight. And the class was very basic, so he asked the coach, "Can I transfer this to my wife?" And the coach was like, "Sure." So then I started swimming, and that's kind of where the exercise started for me. I was afraid to exercise because I was so bummed about what happened with the MS 150 that it was just really slow. So it's not like I had the surgery and then I started exercising. It took me a couple of months. And then I started to swim, and then my neighbors noticed. They're like, hey, my neighbors are very active, and they've all done triathlons and stuff. And they're like, hey, we noticed that you're swimming, and we know you know how to ride a bike. If you start running, you should do a triathlon with us on Mother's Day. And I was like, oh, I don't know, because I despised running at the time. And I was like, I don't think so. And they were on me until finally I signed up and did it. And ever since then, my first triathlon was on Mother's Day of 2012. And ever since then, I've been signed up for something till today. I'm always signed up. I'm always signed up for some kind of race.
Yeah, I think I read on your website that whenever you got out of the water on your first one and were transitioning to the bike, that you made yourself a promise that you would never do one again.
Yes. And so, I remember I was sitting in transition, and my husband was there with my kids, and I was so mad because it was an open water. My first try, I decided to do an open water swim, and the water's choppy. I couldn't bilateral breathe. It was a disaster. And I got out and I was like, I'm never doing this again. And my husband's like, just get on the bike and go. And then when I finished that night, I signed up for the next one.
And what do you think about it made you fall in love with it?
I think it's really the community. It's a very tight community. Everybody's very supportive, but it's just, wow, I can do this. And that's the thing about me is it's like, okay, I did it. And that was a super sprint. So what more? And I always challenge myself, what more can I do? So then the next one I did was a sprint. And then little by little, I kept moving up. And now I'm actually training for a full Ironman in April. So it's just that little bit like, okay, so everyone's like, what are you going to do after the full Ironman? I'm like, I have some things in my head that I want to do, but it's always up in the ante.
Okay. And then what do you, and it sounds like, obviously whenever you finished with the surgery, at some point I saw that you also wrote that you were determined to start exercising again. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that initial motivation came from? Especially, I'm just thinking in my head, you're probably still at least a little bit bigger at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was. I think when I did the try on Mother's Day, I weighed in like around 160.
Okay.
So I had lost a significant amount of weight, but I was,
Well, and was the motivation from, wanting to get back to your old self? Was it from just finishing out the weight loss? Like what do you think kind of got you going?
It was a motivation of what my body could do. Because I did this race, when I did the MS 150, I couldn't finish. I could only, I think I did 74 miles and that was it. And now it's kind of like, wow, my body can do this. Let's see what else it can do. And it's just pushing it and pushing it. I mean, I even did CrossFit and that was so much fun because it's, every day you're just like, you work out and you look at the workout of the day and you're just like, there's no way in hell I can do this. And then you finish it and it's just, wow. It's just that, I don't want to say it like that high, but it's just that excitement that you get from doing something that in the morning you didn't think you could do.
That's awesome. And then I think I saw on your website also that a friend told you should try a half marathon and you told her she should put her crack pipe down.
I did. I did. And it was funny because it was after it was a Mother's Day of 2012. And it was the day after I did the triathlon. She called me and she was like, so how'd you do? And I was like, great. And she's like, and she had just done the Houston half marathon. And she was like, you should try running with me. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm like, because I'd never liked it. Even, and the try that I did, the run was like a mile, so I was like, I'm not going to run 13 miles. No way. And then my neighbors were like, oh yeah, we found this group that we can train with. Let's go do it. Kicking and screaming, they took me and I did it. And after that, and my first try my first half marathon was a San Antonio rock and roll half marathon. And I signed up and I did it. And I signed up for the Houston half the next day. I mean, I liked it. I loved it.
And what changed? Because I mean, running 1 mile, obviously at the time for you, and even looking back was probably a huge accomplishment. Running 13 and training for that's a lot different. Mm-hmm. So what changed kind of in the in between to make you fall in love with running?
Mm-hmm. I'm a very social person. So when you're younger, you go out to bars and drink, and that's what you do to hang out with your friends. Well, now what I do is I run and exercise with my friends. That's my social time.
Yeah, and then what was the process? Just because I know that for a lot of people, I know for me in riding, that was kind of important. Mm-hmm. Was it really just your neighbor that got you involved in a running group, or how did you kind of get connected with people to encourage you in that way?
It was actually that. It was we signed up with the group, and the group was pretty small, but some of my closest friends now that I have are people that I met in that group. And we're just, and we just all sign up for races. We train together and the other thing too is just that your body's getting stronger and stronger each time. And and the weight at the time was just continuing to drop and my body was changing, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like you live in like the runner / try like neighborhood, like everybody around you just does triathlons and runs.
It's so funny. We do. And I'm part of a running group here in Pearland and we all wear orange shirts. And every Saturday there's this main road and my friends that don't run are like, oh, I saw your big running group running up and down the street the other day. But I'm lucky in that sense that I have great friends that we all push each other.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, in looking back on the change, are there any things that changed for you that maybe you weren't expecting, whether it was, socially, physically, emotionally, in your marriage, as a parent, just anything that, looking back, you didn't think that you were really going to see happen?
The big thing that changed for me, I remember we'd go to the rodeo. The rodeo is a big thing here in Houston, and we'd go and I would have to sit down because I'd be tired. I couldn't go with the kids and get on rides and stuff. And now it's we took them to Disney World last year and I had I could stay up all day if I wanted because I had all this energy. And I remember also when I was bigger, I used to love to I was always taking naps, 2-3 hour naps because my body was just so tired. And now it's I have energy to stay up all day, do stuff with my kids. It's I'm more... Not that I wasn't involved then, but I'm more actively involved, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then
instead of just sitting there and watching, I'm actually participating.
Yeah, I had a conversation with one person who said they had basically gone from a mom on the sidelines or a dad on the sidelines to basically being involved in their kids' lives and ways that they weren't before, which is such an incredible gift.
Well, you know what was awesome is I did this year in April. I did Galveston half Ironman. That was my first one, and when I finished the race, my daughter came up and hugged me, and she's like, "I want to do this one day." So all three of my kids have done 2 triathlons already. Like they like it. So they're getting involved as well.
That's awesome. You're a role model now for your kids.
Yes, and that's probably the big thing that I like because I want them to be more active. I don't want them just sit around and play video games and stuff like that. Although they do that, they do that sometimes. But we're getting them out more and like getting them to ride their bikes and swim and all that.
That's awesome. And what do you think? I don't personally have kids, but what do you think has been key in helping them to encourage them in that?
I think when they see me, I mean, they especially training for the half Ironman, it was important for me that they go and see me finish so they can see all the work that I've done. Like they've seen me on the trainer. They've seen me get up early in the morning to go run or ride my bike. And it's just seeing the result of all this work. And I think the awesome thing is that it's motivating them. So now they want to do that. They want to be like mom and, race, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think on your website, or maybe in the message you sent to me, you said that basically setting concrete goals has been key to achieving all that you have. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Why has setting goals been so key in your success?
Because it becomes a challenge for me. Like a big goal that I did is when I was young, when I was little, there were 2 times that I almost drowned in my life. So swimming has always been a challenge. So like this year when I turned 46, I was like, I'm going to swim 4,600 yards. And I talked to my coach and she added it in my training plan and I did it. And it's funny, a bunch of my friends went to the natatorium and they cheered me on, but I swam 4,600 yards. And this is somebody who was terrified of the water. I do open water swims, which is which used to terrify me. I remember doing one try, I had a panic attack in the water and I almost pulled myself out. And luckily this lifeguard came over and just started, calming me down and just giving me little goals. It was the longest 500-meter swim ever, but I got out and I finished. And it's just one of those things of overcoming those obstacles and those things that you can never do. So, yeah, I mean, have I ridden 100 miles? No, but when I do the the full Ironman, I'm going to have to. So I'm training for that. So it's just overcoming those things or doing those things that I never thought I could do.
That's awesome. And then are there any life or physical goals that you're working towards now? I know you said you had the full Ironman kind of in your sights. Anything that you're looking forward to?
After that?
Or just, and it doesn't necessarily have to be physical / exercise goals, but just goals in general.
As far as like, I want to, the big thing is I want to inspire people. Eventually I want to become a coach. And that's, once I get my Ironman under my belt, I want to do that. And I just want to inspire people to, live an active lifestyle to, like I'm doing, overcoming those fears. Like I know some people that can't swim. They're like, I can't do it because I can't swim. Well, let's try to get you in the pool and, get you going. And I mean, I have a friend of mine who her first try, this year she started doing triathlons and it was just amazing because she's like, I could never do it. And I remember when she would go to the pool, she could only she would swim across the pool and be completely out of breath. And then she did a triathlon where she swam like 600 meters in an open water. And that it's amazing to see that. And, my kids haven't done an open water, but hopefully I can get them there. But that's the goal, is just seeing other people, reaching their goals and reaching their potential and in what they want to do.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then what would you say to someone who's maybe at the beginning of this journey, who's where you were when you were 235 pounds and is looking to get started, but maybe just needs some encouragement?
I would just tell them, don't give up on yourself. Just, wake up every day, and just, the one thing I always tell people is sign up for something, sign up for a race. You're not going to show up to the race unprepared, and that's going to make you train, and do it for you at first. It's, a lot of people are like, well, this is a selfish sport or whatever, but, there's sometimes that you have to take care of yourself, because in taking care of yourself, you're able to do other stuff for other people, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure as a mom and as a
Hmm.
spouse, it makes sense more than,
Right.
absolutely. And then if you could go back in time and give some advice to yourself at the beginning of that journey that you think maybe would have been a word of encouragement or would have nudged you in the right direction, what would that be?
Don't give up. I mean, if you fail at something, get up, dust your shoulders off, and keep going. Don't, just because you're overweight, for example, don't think that it's going to stop you from doing stuff. Just keep pushing. I mean, I wish I would have had all this exercise encouragement before I had the weight loss surgery, and maybe I would have, not have to have done it. But, I needed, I mean, not that I needed it, but I had to have that to open my eyes and see, okay, I can do all this.
That's awesome. And then lastly, where can people find out more about you, what you're doing, connect with you? I know you have a website, so maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
I have a website. I have actually the page that's more active right now is my Facebook page, and it's called From Fat Ass to Badass. And that's the one that's really active. I have a blog that I've neglected that I've been wanting to. I need to, revamp that again, start writing and stuff. And hopefully, once I start my training for the full Ironman, I'm going to start documenting my training. But yeah, the page that's probably the most active is From Badass to Badass, and then on Instagram, you can follow me at Iron Chingona. That's my hashtag.
Awesome. Well, I'll include links to all that. And Julie, thanks so much for taking the time, for the inspiration, for
Thanks.
sharing your story, and I'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
Great. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
You too.